So everybody, did you make a little sample book? Did you try it out?
Mm-hmm.
Was it easy to do?
I did my own, yeah.
And did you plan it out before, or did you just jump in and do it?
I thought about, you know what? I'm such a nerd. I actually I have a, like a little journal thing, and I make lists. And so I was just brainstorming for about 3 days about, what kinds of books are there? And I came up with all kinds of crazy ideas about, books for this, books for that. And so, yeah, I did plan it out. What did other people do?
I didn't plan it out at all. I decided to make a small book with 2 pages, and then I started drawing, and that's how I did it. I just jumped in. But I had found an old lunchbox that I had made maybe 20 years ago or so. And they were all parts of lunch that a kid would take, and they were stuffed and photographed. So I took that idea and I took the sandwich and then I drew it out into the pages. So that's where it came from. But I am not organized.
I look forward to trying it. I had my my supplies lined up, and the only thing I was missing was a needle. And that was just enough to say, oh, shoot,
Yeah.
I'll try it later. But I wanted to see what everybody else had done.
If you don't have the right needle, the plastic needles that you use for knitting or for crochet to, tie the last thread in, that works really well. You need a thick needle.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I'll find one or get one.
They sell kits at Amazon where you get a whole bone folder and about 7 big needles and an owl, and it's $6.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
I mean, it was like amazing. And did I say the thread? You get thread that's already beeswaxed also.
Oh, excellent.
What is the name of this kit? Is it a bookmaking kit?
Yeah, I just went into bookmate. I have it in my studio. I can look a little bit later, but I just went into looking for either bone folders or bookmaking materials on Amazon, and this thing came up for $6.95. I said, okay.
That's a great price.
Actually, it's two different bone folders. It has a different weird shaped one, and then the normal one, and it has a medium owl, and it has like about 6 needles with huge holes. And then like you could also look for threads. They also have like for $4, they had 1 million samples of threads, which I use anyway for jelly plates and stuff. So I was really surprised how cheap it was.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm a more impromptu kind of person. I just went into a drawer and pulled out old screen prints and old mono prints and just use those for the collage backgrounds. And like this was a kind of screen, this was a mono print kind of thing. And so it ends up with a, I have the book on a share later, but so I did a lot of collaging. I was having fun doing collaging different. So, and I was just using things that were around my studio, like those little round discs were from emerging artists from last year. One of the architects was throwing away their, they had these big assemblages, and I like those round discs, so I took it home. And so those are the round discs on them. And then the other thing I did was just grab, I have a bunch of, when you do screen printing, you have multiples, and what are you gonna do with those? So I just had, I have screen prints. And then, and I just started collaging that. So that's the front and that's the back. And then I think as I was
Roberta,
telling.
are you showing us actual books?
Did you
Yeah,
how many
actual
books did you
books?
make?
Can you
Pardon?
like are those actual books you're showing?
Yeah.
Well, you know
Books.
what? Could you, I'm trying to get to speaker view. I'd like to see them in more detail. You're just throwing them up there. Okay, now I'm on speaker.
Oh,
view.
I think I
I'll
actually
go
have
over again.
pictures. So, okay. So this is a book from like this, probably this screen print kind of thing. And then I collaged it. This was actually the second one I did, and it went faster because I realized you have to go on the side. And then the first one I had done was, so I did a combination of a jelly plate print, and then those things from the emerging artists. And then this is a mono print. And then this is the back, because I also did a lot of collaging on that. And in some of those. And then I think I had told Neila that this first one, the sewing was all over the place. So I just hide them. I always hide them. Doesn't matter. You can hide anything. And I had told her like 20 years ago, I'd taken a bookmaking course at the Smithsonian, and the teacher there said I was the cover-up artist. So here was the cover-up of the stitches. So I did another. So the
And
stitches
tell us
was
how
under
big it
there.
is,
And
too.
pardon?
You didn't tell us how big it is.
Oh, I don't know. It's probably about 9 by 6. And then the collage is probably also 9 by 6 because it doesn't use the whole thing.
So that's
But
the
I
cover-up
just was-
page? Is that your cover-up page that
This
you
is-
showed?
This is the cover-up page. And then there's another part of the cover-up because in the middle, of course, you also have it. So that wasn't as bad. I only had to do a small cover-up. But really what I was enjoying is the collaging. And so I have a bunch of collages in there, but I'm actually getting together. I'm going to be doing about, by the time I did the second one, I got really fast. The first one, the first time I did it, I cut the paper in half. I cut the paper in half. I cut the spine in half. I said, oh no, you're supposed to keep them together. But I collaged that whole thing. It was all ready, except that I had to start again. But by the time I did this one, I was really fast. I must have done this whole thing in about a half an hour. And so I'm getting together a whole bunch of these. These I did 5 holes because it was, and I'm going to do bigger ones because I'm getting projects ready for post-surgery, where I can have like things lined up and I can put them in the things, and I don't have to be, I have them places. I'm not going to be using big substrates. And like I have this one, it's going to be called collage mono printing. This one's just called journal. I'll have a bunch of topics, and I'll just have these books hanging around there. And also I'll be collaging them. So I'm all set for being sedentary, relatively speaking.
That's great.
It is great.
Yeah.
Well, I actually used jelly plate for my book, so maybe
Oh, let's see.
Yeah.
I posted on Instagram. It might be, I have like a video. It might be easier to see than this,
great.
but I don't. Should I try that? Should I share a video or?
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah.
sure, absolutely.
I did jelly plate, and then I did drawing on top with Poscos.
I love how colorful it is.
Yes. Oh, that's
Oh,
great.
that's the part where I messed up the thread, and I got a loop, and then I cut it, and now it's kind of messed up. So I hope it doesn't fall apart. But that was the only bad part about my making the book.
Collage it.
It looks very spring-like, really influenced by spring colors and
Yeah,
daffodils and
Very happy.
very happy.
lovely.
That's great.
Raina's work is always colorful and happy.
Yeah, I have a lot of colors usually.
Yeah, I love your work.
Yeah.
What did you use for the cover?
I used pink
Stencil.
poster board that I got at a five and dime store, and then
Okay.
I jelly plate. I did a stencil jelly plate
Stencil.
print on that.
That's great. I love the layers. There's so many different layers on the pages.
Thanks. It was fun. It was really fun. Thanks for having the workshop.
Oh, I'm glad you were there.
Well, I guess I can go. My books are different because I wasn't really thinking about filling the pages because I always like to have a small book, especially when I travel. You know, I make these little books that are blank. And then when I travel, you know, I just put all my notes in there and my ideas. I get a lot of ideas when I travel and directions to places and so on. And then when I come home, I can take that little book that I've made myself and I can I just put it in my drawer, and that's a record of that trip. But anyway, so that's why I like the blank book. So I didn't do what you both did, which I think they're both very beautiful. Okay, so when Neila said, did you plan? Yeah, I planned a lot. So, you know, I do origami and I have, you know, I do sew a simple book. Oh, somebody's coming in. Okay. So, where was I? Yeah, so I fold books. I have bookmaking, I have paper arts, you know, I just like to try all kinds of things. So anyway, I was inspired to make, when I told you I made a list of all the different crazy kind of books you could have, it occurred to me that I could have a bookmark book, a book of bookmarks. And my husband said, you're solving a problem that nobody actually has. And I said, well, no, actually I have that problem because I have books all over the house and my bookmarks are never within reach of the books.
Right.
And anyway, so I was like, okay, let's make a book of bookmarks. So this was the trial. And of course, I have all kinds of paper. So this is a rice paper. And then this pattern here, if you can see, can you
Hold it
see
more in the middle?
what that is, right? So this is patterned after a typical pocket folder. So, you know, it has like the sequence of folds is the same as any type of a pocket folder.
Mm-hmm.
And so it might have like 6 pages, right? And it fits bookmarks that are about 7 inches tall.
Right.
Okay, so that was my trial run. So that one's for me.
That's a
So then
great
I thought,
idea.
I like this. So I'm going to make one for Neila because Neila and I are exchanging books. So I was thinking papyrus, Egyptian. So I put a tassel because a lot of times bookmarks have tassels. And then instead of doing a full cover like this, which I decided you don't actually need a full cover on a bookmark book, but I found this handmade paper in my stash and it's very stiff. So I decided, well, you know, that can be the container. And then of course, this is Neila's name in hieroglyphics. So I watercolored her special
Love it.
bookmark. And then as you go through, I just went through and like all of you, you know, I always have remnants of, this is a remnant of a print. So it's now a bookmark. I'll just keep it out. And then of course this papyrus, because we had that Egyptian theme going.
Mm-hmm.
And then what else is here? And then this is a piece of probably a jelly plate thing. And another kind of jelly plate bookmark. And then finally, what's this? This is just this, you know, sometimes you just need a very slim piece of paper because you don't want to bulk up the book at all. So I figured, well, we'll put one of those in here. So that was book number 2. There's more. This type of book is, the next one is also, it's a pamphlet stitch, but this is the type of travel journal that I like to make. And my friend Megan Hicks taught it to me. And it was originally published by a woman who's in the folding world, is this guru. I think she was the book conservator at the Philosophical Society. And her name is Hetty Kyle. So it's called like I think it's called like the diagonal fold. So this is what it looks like. But what's really fantastic about it, I made it sort of square because this one would be good for drawing, okay? What's fantastic about it is that when I travel, I always have this in my bag. When I come into Philadelphia, I always know that my train tickets, that, you know, group of 10 train tickets are always in there.
Yeah.
I always know where they are. And then here are just empty pages to fool around with.
Yeah.
And so I can tuck things in and then it just closes up like this. And you slide it into, you know, the flat part of the bag and there it is.
Very
So then the third book, I thought I was so brilliant. Sometimes I really impress myself. I thought I was brilliant. But maybe you've seen this before because maybe it's not all that original. I contacted my local library and I said, could you save me like those stamped cards, you know, and the catalog card, just save me those things. I know you probably don't even use them anymore and you probably throw them away and you take out the books and what do you do with those little pieces of paper in the back? So they actually did save me some. So this is my moment of brilliance. So my local library is the Helen Kate Furness Library.
Love it.
And here you have the thing that's glued into the back of the book. So then you slide your little book out of that little pocket and the cover is, yeah, this is the cover and that's the back.
Oh, that's from the card catalog.
It's from the card catalog. And then the inside, these are the empty pages where I would write my notes and this was the second style that Neila taught us.
Okay.
Mhm.
Oh,
Except I
that's
didn't
great.
round the edges, but that's the spine is that spine. So I had so much fun doing this. I thought, oh my God, I'm so brilliant. I had to make like 5 of them so that I could give them to people. So if anybody wants to do a book exchange, you have to send me a book and I would send you one of these because I made enough of them that I can share a few of them. So there you go. Thank you, Neila. That was great fun.
That
I love
that
having an
looks great.
assignment.
Very nice.
So are there instructions somewhere for that fold?
The Hetty Kyle, well, there's a book. I actually drove into Philadelphia because this is a book that not all libraries carry. But I learned that I have a Philadelphia Public Library book card and they did have it. So I did reserve it. I drove into Philly, picked it up and drove home. Oh, here's somebody else coming in. So I have that book. So I'm returning it soon and then you can get it.
So it's
But it's
Hetty.
Hetty Kyle, HEDIKYLE. And the name of the book is The Art of the Fold. And as I said, I learned this from my friend, and I am willing to bet that the instructions for that fold are probably on a video on YouTube.
Ah.
So I haven't watched that video. I mean, I don't know that it exists. I'm assuming that it exists. But what I'm going to do is photocopy before I return the book to the library. I'm going to photocopy those pages because my friend gave me the book. I deconstructed the book and figured out the folding. So the way I figured out wasn't the same way as Hetty Kyle taught it. And additionally, in Hetty Kyle's instructions, she says, if you want your book to be square, this is what you have to do. So it's like, you know, you go double one way and 4 times the other way. Follow me? You can start from your original page size and scale the book. So what I just copied, deconstructed the book that was given to me, and that's how I did it. But it's a great fun. It's so much fun to fold paper. It's nothing like it.
And in the bookmark book, what were those? What kind of paper were those pockets made from?
Oh, this is rice paper.
It looked like, okay, that's what I looked
So
like.
this one, I have to tell you, I did my sample. I really did plan it. You know, I really did think about it. I had a instruction somewhere for a pocket. You know, it's like a file folder pocket. And I could figure it out by looking at a file folder, but I happen to have the instructions somewhere. And so I actually took out a piece of graph paper and I planned this thing out on graph paper. So then I could quickly run through and make all the pages because I think there's 6 pages in here, you know, and so they're all sewn in exactly like she showed us, right? So they're all sewn in. That's the center page.
Wow.
So whereas we would be thinking about the book like this form is called a ledger form when it's up and down. So if you wanted to hang this on a door, for example, if you had a reason to want a vertical book, you could just run a strap this way and you could hang it on a hook and you could lift things out of it. So that's the reason why it doesn't really want to have a cover, because you're lifting things out, you know, and it's better to have it open, or, you know, I just put a little roof on it because I thought that was fun.
Pretty nifty, Susan.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Very nifty.
Oh, thank you. Well, you know what? I was inspired, you know, and when I'm inspired, things happen. Thank you, Neila.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Want to show something?
I'm sorry I'm late. I made something.
Great.
Okay, and I just don't like my sewing at all, but I wanted to do what you said we should try, and so I did it. So,
Very good.
let me see. So this is the cover. It's a little book.
That's
And
so
what
cute.
Thank you. And this one's for Tina. And I used some of the handmade paper that I have that I made, and I wanted to do like a really nice edge to it. So I forgot that this is the paper that does not have sizing in it, so it just sucked up all the color right into the middle of the page. So this, Tina, this is what you're getting.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow. Oh, I love it.
All right. So it's I don't know, about 8 pages. And then let me see. And this is my horrific stitching. I didn't put it
It looks like thought bubbles, and maybe it could be a joke book. Could be a joke
Yeah.
book.
Or a Rorschach test in reverse.
exactly. So, and then, I actually took some kitchen string and dyed it. It was walnut ink that I used, and I dyed it in the same walnut ink, and it's got a little bit of a color to it. So it kind of goes with.
That's great.
Yeah.
Really, the first one is the hardest.
Yeah.
and we're using whatever we have. So that's wonderful.
Thank you.
I love tiny things. I think that they're really, really special.
They are. And I like the different colors on the pages, the white organic shape of the page, and then the dark brown.
Yeah. Thanks.
Anybody else have one? Well, I'll show mine. This is about 4.5 inches high. And I drew the pages. So it's a sandwich.
Oh, that's great.
Started with
I
a
love
piece
that.
of bread. It's going to be a tuna sandwich.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God, that's great.
Piece of lettuce,
So good.
mayonnaise, tomato slice,
Oh,
and the last piece of bread.
That's awesome.
that is fabulous.
And it's a canned pandemic lunch.
And it's square.
And it's square.
That's awesome.
That is hilarious.
So I had a good time drawing it. And my husband kept saying, "Where's the mayo jar?"
Well, Neila, I thought that your instructions were crystal clear
Good.
and you're very methodical in the way that you present. And in the case of learning to make books, that's a really important thing.
Yeah, I tried to go step by step and go slowly enough so I wasn't missing anything, so people could, go along and pick it up where they were working.
And I'm sure people will be looking at the recording going forward. I went back to the recording.
Yeah, me too.
And thank you all, everybody, for making the recording and getting it out there. That's a big help.
So I wonder if we can, we can throw out a challenge at some point, when we remind people that the recordings are there, we can throw out a challenge and maybe ask them to send us a photo of what they've produced.
Yeah.
To inspire people and to remind people that over time, you want to remind people that the recording is there. So somebody, like Janice, who doesn't have a needle right now, might come up with a needle in 2 months. Wait, is that a book?
Yes, but
You made it without stitching.
right. But this was not one that I made, based on Neila's instructions. This is one that I made many years ago at the book center in New York.
Okay. That's a great place.
It is, but I could scarcely keep up with everybody. But this, as you can see, it's a lot more detailed. Whoops. And you see the spine, it's all connected, and then you pasted, oh, I forget what they call those.
End papers.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And also there was a pocket here. That's what, because of what Susan did, you know, I see that. I remembered that I had done one that had the pocket. So what did I put in the pocket? Well, at the time I was doing still lifes. And so, you know, it was a stash of these that I put in. That's enough.
Really nice.
Thank you. And I did some folding books. Let's see. It's an 8-pager and you fold it so that it ends up being 8 pages. I'm not saying this very well, but I really love making them. And I'm definitely going to try Neila's way of doing it.
Sounds good. Yeah, and the directions will be there, so whenever you want to try it later on, you'll be ready for it.
Right.
Janice, what do you call that? It looks like a folder or a folio or what? what's the
Yes,
name of
I
that
guess
style?
it would be a folio. I like your word. But, you know, the fact that, you know, that there's a pocket. I mean, I could have put a pocket here too, but as I said, it was really hard for me to keep up with the class because it is quite involved.
But it's a beautiful cover.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, and you know, that's one thing I should mention. When you're working with paper or board, there's a grain to it. And the grain should always go in the same direction as the spine. And to figure out how the grain goes, you don't fold the paper, but you kind of bend it a little bit. And whichever direction you get less give, then that's the way the grain goes. Because the fibers in paper are like woven, like a piece of cloth. So they go at right angles to each other. And when the paper is wet, those fibers line themselves up from the shaking, and they kind of lock into each other and give it strength. So even on a book board that you made your little folio from, if you try to bend it, one way will not be as hard to bend. And so that is the direction the grain is going in. And I usually put like a little arrow to remind myself on that board. And then whichever way the arrow's going, that should line up with the spine.
What I liked, Neila, was that you had all of these little tricks, you know, like taping down the edge of the end of the string or the ribbon, and, you know, clipping things at certain times. Really helpful.
Yeah, because I always need like a third hand or a fourth hand to do all these little things. And over time, you find little things to do that help, or people tell you about them. And it makes it a little easier.
Yes.
And it was helpful when you said on the double, you know, did you call it the double bind? The double bind, yeah. That I was remembering when I was pulling that thing together, you said, oh, the page is going to be all over the place, and don't worry because you can tighten it at the end. And I had clipped to keep everything together. And then as I was manipulating it and getting closer to putting it together, I removed the clips and reclipped. So I was like clipping more things together
Yeah.
as the book progressed, you know? And I just thought, okay, she said that it'll all come together at the end. So it's okay if the pages are sort of, because it looks like chaos. Like
Oh,
right before
yeah.
it comes together perfectly.
It really does. And then all of a sudden you give that last tug and like magic, it's really tight. Yeah. I know. Until you have done it, you don't know if it's going to be anything or you have to start all over again.
So one of my books, I did make the mistake about the grain. I kind of learned the hard way. So I was using a piece of drawing paper, and you know what, I can't remember exactly how it went, but there was the drawing paper was rolled up to start with. And so I was thinking like, oh, I know there's something about a grain. And do they normally roll paper along the grain? And I was kind of like, instead of doing the intelligent thing, which would be to look it up, I was like, I can't matter on a book this small, but actually it did matter. And so that's a book I'm not showing because the interior pages are one signature is like this and the other is like that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and then I tried to weight it down and I tried to roll it backwards, and it's never going to look as nice as it would if I had just stopped and answered that question for myself. So, you know, you live and you learn.
Yeah. Yeah. And these are, you know, starter books. So that's great. You might want to try ironing the pages. I don't know if that would help or not, but once paper is rolled, and I think they just roll it haphazardly. I don't think it goes with or without the grain. But like on machine made papers, that does not really have a grain to it. So you won't really find a grain on everything. And I think grain really matters a lot when you're gluing things, because you're getting a lot of moisture in there and then it's drying. So sometimes the force of gluing and putting a piece, wrapping it in a piece of paper, the forces just tug on that board a lot. So you really have to try and get the grain right.
So are we saying that the fold is going to should end up being parallel to the grain?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And on clipping, I just want to add that, I mean, you folks might not be using a paper that's as heavy as I did for Neila's bookmark book, but in order to really get this thing to settle down, I actually did clip it along here. I put like bulldog clips or some sort of clip here so that it would just kind of like break a little bit of that fiber so it would lay down better.
Yeah.
So actually the clipping came in handy for a number of reasons.
Yeah, and sometimes using the bone folder, that really gives you a nice strong crease too. There's little tools that everybody uses. So if you do more books, sometimes that's really helpful.
And I think Roberta's fine there, you know, with that little kit. That would make a fantastic little gift for somebody, you know, to get them started. So I don't know, we could share that maybe with everybody, you know, to help folks get started. But I don't know if Roberta has that link.
Here, I put up a link to one of those.
Okay,
Just
I was
a
just gonna look at
typical kit. So it's got a bunch of needles, it's got thread, it's got an awl, it's got a bone folder and a bone cutter, I think it's called.
Yeah, and for just a couple dollars, that was a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Neila, can you talk to us about thinking about content? You know, are there any tips to help us to conceptualize a book? Because it seems to me there's having the skill, knowing what book forms are available, and then matching that with your concept, and then of course finding a concept.
Yeah. That, you know, that's always a really good question, in any kind of work we do. So I would always suggest that whatever you like to draw or paint or print in your everyday sessions, I would use that as a starting point and try to lay it out in a little sketch with maybe four different frames, and see how you can progress it from the beginning to the end and move it along so there's some interest in it. And whether it's abstract or if you're doing a landscape, you know, just write down what you're looking to put in the landscape. Is it hills? Is it trees? Or are you going to have people or houses in it? And see if you can have a flow that goes from maybe empty to rather full, and then an ending that resolves the rest of the landscape. And sometimes that kind of idea might give you some kind of flow to your book. And not everybody puts writing into it, but decide if you want to put writing in, and if you just want a sentence or if you want a page of writing. That's always a big part of it too. You know, where is it going to go? Is it going over the scene? Is it going to the side? Is it going on the bottom of the page? And I think that helps you decide what the book is going to look like in the end. And if you're not going to do a content book, then what would you use it for? Like Susan is using hers to have notes in and to keep pictures in of a trip. And then that gets filled up day by day, which is a whole different idea. So those are some different ways to look at it. I do a lot with food. So sometimes I have used donuts, and my end papers have been the wrappings from the donut box. They're kind of colorful and they give a nice crinkle to it. And you sort of think about the food that way too, as you're turning the pages. And another time I did a pack of chicken. And so the cover of the book, I got a piece of soft plastic. So it reminded me of the shrink wrap on the chicken package. And then each page was a thigh or a wing or something. And I did clean the glass really well when I was done.
That's really funny. It's nice. So what I'm hearing you say is we can be inspired by found paper, can inspire an idea.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, sometimes it gives a nice little edge to the whole book. It doesn't have to be uniform all the way through. But if you are the kind of person that wants it uniform, then, you know, every page will be exactly the same kind of crisp paper. And that works out really nice too.
Yeah, I was imagining that like acetate you know, some sort of like a very sheer tracing paper or an acetate in between the other pages, and that could, you could get 2 pages out of every 1 page in a way, because when you flip that acetate, whatever you paint on the acetate
Right.
is a window to those other 2 pages. So it almost doubles the pages in a way.
Yeah, it does.
And I wonder how that would sew in. Do you know?
It depends on the material. You know, some of those acetate pages are easy to fold, and others you have to be careful. They tear rather than hold a hole, a puncture. So I would, if you're using a strange piece of material, I would try it as a sample, just to see what you're up against before you actually use it. You might have to make adjustments with a little reinforcement for the hull.
So one of the things I did when I was working on this pattern, so I actually ran a few samples before I came up with this, but one of the samples, I think I wanted that papyrus look, but the papyrus paper that I had was so brittle that I realized that it wouldn't be a good material. So what looks like papyrus? Well, I happen to have a fabric, and I thought, well, why don't I use fabric? And I actually put like an interfacing, an iron-on interfacing. I didn't end up using these ideas, but I tried them. In another place where I needed to have a stitching, what I did was I used an interfacing in a strip.
Mhm.
So it was a double faced maybe. Anyway, I used the interfacing and maybe another piece of fabric just as a strip in the place where I would sew it.
Right.
So anything that would stick to that little strip could become a page, I discovered.
Mhm.
Now acetate might not, maybe you could sew acetate to the strip if acetate wouldn't stick to the strip. But that was the only solution I came up with.
Yeah, those are all really good ideas, and the idea that you take these little pieces and try it to see what really goes into the book and what doesn't. And I love using the sewing machine on these papers all the time. You can make a really nice edge. It doesn't always have to be a straight edge when you're adding a reinforced piece of paper. It can have an organic shape to it. And yeah, it might lead to ideas that you wouldn't have thought of to begin with. Yeah, I found grommets help a lot, and sometimes I just love using them on pages because of the colors. They wouldn't work when you're, when you're making this kind of fold, because they have a thickness to them. But on a flat surface, the grommets work great. So that's another way to reinforce a hull. But I like the interfacing. You could use that too on an acetate sheet. And I think the whole idea is you play around with these things. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, but it makes you slow down and think about things. Has anybody else tried different kinds of materials that they might not have thought of to use? I think Dory had tried dyeing some papers.
It looks like Dory left us a note saying that she had to leave early,
Okay.
that she'd like to watch the entire event, so you could ask a question and maybe she'll view it and answer it later.
Yeah, I thought Dory had dyed some of her papers a brown, and I was wondering what she used to dye them.
Oh, I think she mentioned it was walnut ink,
Okay.
but which is beautiful. So
Yeah, that really gives you a nice rich brown. Over the fall and the winter, I've been trying a few different materials to dye papers, and I'm waiting to use them. I have turmeric that I grabbed out of the kitchen, and I got some little pieces of copper, and I let them sit in some vinegar, and I'm getting a turquoise color out of that. So I'm going to try painting that on some white pages and see what happens.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that is
I
some
just saw
mad
an
scientist
article
stuff.
about using avocado pits to dye fabric, and it makes it a pink. So I wonder if you can extract that for paper. It's a beautiful pink on fabric. I don't know what it's like on paper.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have some and you try it on a piece of paper, bring it in one day and share it.